Oh, fish paste. We're still stuck inside any forms of that confusing Kelp Forest. But hopefully we will get around into it, assuming if we're able to actually just try to solve the last few puzzles and all that stuff. So, hey, what's up everybody? It is I am the one and only Ray the Flying Squirrel here, and I am back for yet again for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos here. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated for the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, PC Steam, Nintendo Switch, and of course the iOS release. So last time, I believe we have managed to actually collect some more Patrick socks during the likes of in the previous worlds and all that stuff. And on top of all that stuff though, we did manage to experience the first half of the forms of everyone else's least favorite world in the game, which is of course Kelp Forest. So as a result though, hopefully by that time and during the forms of today, and usually for today anyway, that we're going to be hopefully trying to wrap things up through everything in terms of Kelp Forest by, what else? Try to actually do this more puzzle segments, and of course we're able to actually obtain the last few, golden spatulas, and as well as the forms of the remaining of the forms of Patrick's socks during that time. So, yeah, hopefully things gets a little bit more relative at this point, especially noticeable because, well, as far as I'm aware, that we pretty much almost nearly at the end, for the sake of the forms of this godforsaken world, but until we move on to, thankfully, the most tolerable world in the game, which appears to be the Flying Dutchman's graveyard. So we can pretty much expect what this is going. So, excuse me, I'm really sorry about this for this point, guys. Especially noticeable because, again, that I do apologize for my commentary gets a little bit iffy at this point. Well, this time around, though, is actually something to do with my throat. So because of this, though, I'm still fine as it is. But as a result of that kind of stuff, though, I think that's as far as I can try to say about this for the most part. Ah, darn it! I can't even believe that particular camera angle just sometimes screws me up. Oh well, no big deal, but at the very least we already got the checkpoint from that particular bus stop, so at the very least we're not lost in progressions as far as this is concerned. So, anyway, so how's anyone doing? Well, basically, today's day is of course the 7th, is it the 7th today? Yeah, I'm sure it's the 7th of July today, in this case in 2022 today, so relatively speaking, like I said this before, is the fact that relatively speaking, until by that time, until tomorrow anyway, that Maxi will definitely get able to finish up with Super Mario Sunshine game portion in terms of Super Mario 3D All-Stars before he move on to the final game of this entire compilation, which is of course Super Mario Galaxy, but relatively speaking though, after we're done with the forms of, Super Mario Sunshine on the 3D All-Stars compilation game, once again he'll take a break from it specifically until September, because, well, as far as I'm aware, I'm pretty sure that he will mention more details about that until whenever he goes back onto Super Mario 3D All-Stars in the Super Mario Sunshine game. And afterwards though, that specifically for next week is the fact that we might be able to actually change up the uploading schedules for this game, especially noticeable because, well, relatively speaking, like we already established that before, that we're pretty much almost nearly at the end of this game, until specifically we'll try to show you guys some of these extra bits here and there. Well, apart from that, unfortunately though, there was that one particular missing factor about this, because, well, as far as I'm aware, it's only accessible for multiplayer, and because of this though, you won't be missing a goddamn thing though, but either way though, we'll point it out whenever we get into the extra portion, and especially noticeable with the forms of the finale portion of the game as well. So relatively speaking though, it might be a bit too early to able to say about this at this point, so anyway, so here's the, I would say this is the 5th crystal that we've actually gotten through. So, relatively speaking, I think we've only got one more crystal left. So, but hopefully, once we're able to actually find every single crystals, then we can pretty much expect to be able to talk to Barnacle Boy and hopefully get the golden spatula in the process. So, yeah, that pretty much summarized that such. So, anyways, let's switch over to SpongeBob here, and just to ensure that we will be able to actually try to find a final crystal here somewhere. So, Anyway, so a few things we want to explain while this is going on. About the fact the matter is though, one thing I totally forgot to mention about ever since the last video of this, especially noticeable about the fact that since that Pac-Man has technically already mentioned about this, at least in ever since and during the course of his Pac-Man party, or no, Wii party let's play, that recently, relatively speaking, that we actually got a ton of announcements recently, ever since about a couple of days ago, especially noticeable because, relatively speaking, as I said before, it's been a very long while since I actually mentioned something related to news, announcements, or anything else to be more specific, but we'll get into those right about now. First of all, back in the forms of the 22nd of June, while we're still on the forms of Cyprus, out of nowhere, that we actually got ourselves the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Direct. Now, I know you guys are probably thinking about the fact that, well, did you able to actually watch the Direct? Well, I surely do, but ultimately speaking though, I wasn't exactly all that hype about that Direct, I must be honest here. But, at the very least, for certain Xenoblade Chronicles fans out there, they'll be very interested with this new stuff they'll add it into. Specifically, the fact that, well, I don't remember those characters all that well, just because I'm not exactly a massive fan of those Xenoblade Chronicles games to begin with. But as a result of that kind of stuff though, there's that cool feature in the game, I will have to admit it though right away, it is very very cool. And that's what appears to be something related to two of those characters fused together into like a mechanical kind of thing. Which, I know it sounds a little bit familiar for those of you who watch certain anime. I'm referring to Darling in the Franxx anime, which as far as I'm aware, I've seen the anime before, and it looks really impressive. Especially noticeable in the English dub version of that particular anime. But, relatively speaking though, it does remind me of that particular mechanic. And, also, not to mention though, much like the forms of Xenoblade Chronicles 2, also Xenoblade Chronicles 3 will get ourselves the expansion pack. Or to be more specifically, the expansion pass, which able to actually, well, feature some more stuff, specifically with more weapons, along with the forms of the new expandable story, although we'll get to more details about those specific stuff until later. But what's interesting about the forms of Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is I'm pretty sure that unlike Xenoblade Chronicles 2, if I recall correctly, and Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition on the Switch, that about time that Xenoblade Chronicles 3 actually supports amiibo functionality. However though, you can only scan in one amiibo, and that's what appears to be the Shulk amiibo. Now I believe you would able to actually access that familiar weapon from Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, which appears to be the Monado, which is pretty interesting all things considered, especially because, well, relatively speaking, that was the most iconic weapon ever in the entire series, so...
Barnacle Boy, I think I found all your crystals! Now I can see your secret superpower.
Alright, stand back! Oh boy. There!
What happened?
I gained the power to trim my nose hairs at super speed.
Incredible!
Yeah, I guess so. Well then, I need to return to the Mermalair and get back to work. But here, take this golden spatula and go away.
Of course, Barnacle Boy! I'm always happy to lend my services to my favorite superhero. If you ever run into trouble again, let me know.
Yeah, sure, kid. Thanks. And goodbye.
Anyway, so, yeah, it seems pretty interesting, and, of course the release date is pretty much unchanged, so it will still be released during at some point by the end of this month, specifically the 29th of July, so, yeah, that should be interesting and stuff like that. But also, out of nowhere, we actually got ourselves another Nintendo Direct during the course of the forms of June, which I suppose that me or anyone else has forgot to mention about this either. Although I'll get to more details about this in a moment because, well, let's just move on to the next area. So I believe we're able to actually do with a fun slide segment while we meet up with Mermaid Man. So... and we can able to expect that we will do the actual time challenge as well as going for the actual obstacle itself in Kelp Vines.
Hi, Mermaid Man. What are you doing here?
Oh, hello, Kyle. I was trying to find some of our missing energy crystals, when I came across this vine. In my younger days, I held the all-time speed record for vine sliding. You should try it. What a hoot! And if you can beat my best time, I'll give you another of these gold spatulas.
Well, I am a bit busy with all these robots, but sure, why not? It does look like fun.
Try not to fall off.
Yeah, we already got this, Mermaid Man, because after all, we've already experienced the original version of the game before on one hand. I believe if you try to switch over to Patrick though, I believe the actual timer deactivates, so that's something worth noting for, and I fell off, so whoops. Well, mind you, because it's been about a couple of days ago since I actually did manage able to play this, so yeah, we'll just keep trying. So anyway, so out of nowhere, during the Forms of in June that I forgot to mention about, even the Pac-Man has already forgot to mention about this either, and even Maxi has forgot to mention about this either from those particular 3 Let's Plays respectively. Out of nowhere, we got another Nintendo Direct, but this time we got ourselves, unfortunately, we got ourselves the revival of Partner Showcases, which I'll get to my major gripe I have with that particular Direct until later, but yeah, it seems that we actually got ourselves the Nintendo Direct Mini during the course of in June, in 28th of 2022, for the sake of the forms of that particular presentation. So, as far as I'm aware, for what I've seen, the actual Direct itself is actually not too bad. Like, we actually got some very surprising announcements, specifically more infos on, let's just say, Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, which, relatively speaking, that particular DLC expansion has already now become a thing in public now. And there's also the forms of, well, Nearer Ultron at the end of Yurda edition. I think that's what it says anyway, despite I'm not exactly known about other games worth noting for. And there's also Lori and the Laser Eyes, and there's also the forms of Blake, I think that's what it's at, and especially noticeable there is the Rail Grade, I think that's what it says. RPG Time, The Legend of White, I think is what it usually calls that anyway, and also more gameplay footage of the forms of Disney Dreamlight Valley, and also Live and Live, I think that's what it's called for that particular game anyway. And also there are some very, very cool and exciting stuff here and there as well. But I'll save that in a second, because they've shown us some more footage from the likes of the forms of Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hypes. Well, usually that game already exists anyway. And also more footage on No Man's Sky, which nobody seemed able to care about. But we got some very interesting and also hyped announcements here and there as well, which I'll give this one credit for the doubt. I will say that this particular Partner Showcase, as far as the forms of how the fact that despite I'm not a big fan of the forms of the Partner Showcase presentations, I will say that the actual Partner Showcase for this year is by far the best. Clearly because, well, I'll point out whenever we get into the forms of let's just say, whenever we get to the Flying Dutchman's graveyard and stuff like that. So, yeah, let's just hop in here and get another golden spatula, so...
Well, now, that's some time you've gotten.
I guess you could say I had that course licked.
I guess I owe you a reward. Take this golden spatula.
Thanks, Mermaid Man.
Which I do appreciate it. So we're now on 73 golden spatulas. So I think we've only got about 27 of those things left. So now let's go ahead and switch over back to Patrick as we move along. And yeah, everything else goes all fine and dandy and everything. So now as far as I'm aware, that yeah, let's just talk about the forms of that specific interesting announcements they've got. For the sake of the forms of the Partner Showcase recently from the Nintendo Direct Mini. First off, we're actually getting ourselves the sequel to the 2017 game Super Bomberman R, referring to as Super Bomberman R2. So yeah, it's kind of interesting that how the fact that that game is actually getting a sequel, because relatively speaking, Super Bomberman R did originally came out for the Nintendo Switch as an exclusive title back in the day, and also that's a part of the launch title for the system, along with the forms of course, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, 1 to Switch, and you probably name the rest. And yeah, as far as I'm aware, the release date for that game is going to be due out at some point on the 2023 year release. So, because relatively speaking, because the reason why they choose 2023 as opposed to this year in 2022, that could be something related to its anniversary of the actual well-known series in the past, which are referring to as, let's just say, the 40th anniversary of the Bomberman games themselves, or something like that, or the Bomberman series, or relatively speaking, by that time it will be the exact same year as when possibly, if Nintendo might try to do something, trying to able to celebrate with Luigi and stuff like that, just like in 2013, but God knows when though, because either way though, we pretty much still in a limbo when it comes to likely first-party games and stuff like that. Like, well, I'll get into more details about that in a moment, but yeah, Super Bomberman R2 is definitely coming, so, and I think it's gonna be multi-platform, much like the forms of how it does in the original game, I'm pretty sure for this matter. So yeah, that's actually pretty cool and everything. And what's also very cool is the fact that we're actually getting ourselves a new gameplay footage of Sonic Frontiers. Well, usually relatively speaking, because we already seen the actual exploration gameplay, along with the forms of the combat gameplay, but the newest footage they've got right now, which appears to be buddy forms of our first look of the cyberspace levels, and I will say, they look awesome. Especially noticeable, we actually got some of these familiar settings, like, well, let's just say we've got to be able to experience Green Hill Zone all over again, so nothing special there. But the newest one of the lineup, where it comes to the forms of level themes and stuff like that, based off from cyberspace segments, that's what appears to be buddy forms of a random city street level, which is, I'm not gonna lie, it's actually pretty incredible and pretty cool at the same time. Although, it might still say the actual, the schedule release is going to be at some point during the course of this holiday season. So, relatively speaking, if you somehow managed able to complete, if I recall with those cyberspace segments of the actual, the levels themselves, I believe you get yourselves a special key, which, kind of thinking about it, it does kind of reminds me of the forms of the shrines from the likes of the Breath of the Wild game. Like, you're able to actually get some spirit orbs every time you complete those shrines. So, yeah, it does remind me of that, except this time in Sonic Frontiers, you get keys instead of like a special kind of orbs or something like that. So, yeah, I guess that begs the question for this point. So, and also at the end of that particular mini trailer for the likes of the forms of Sonic Frontiers, we might able to actually get our first glance of, let's just say, a new villain of any sorts, which I almost first thought that was going to be Infinite Revenge from the likes of the forms of Sonic Forces, but it turns out that it's going to be a different villain, which, as far as I'm aware, the new character or new villain for that matter, it's hard to tell. But, I think her name was actually Sage, so, yeah, that may actually be interesting. We're able to actually see what the actual, the character itself actually looks like. But anyway, so now we found every single, you know, campus right now, so I think we need to able to switch back over to, SpongeBob quickly, until we're able to actually get ourselves the, well, the final golden spatula for the sake of the boss of the Kelp Forest, so. And once we're done with that, then we can pretty much leave this place for good, and then move on to the next world, which is of course, you know, the Flying Dutchman's Graveyard. So, that'll be cool and awesome throughout. So, anyway, so let's just go ahead and get some more shiny objects while this is going. So, yeah, that pretty much summarizes as such. And trying to jump over for this massive gap here. And I get the feeling I'm actually currently missing something here, because as far as I'm aware, again, it's been about 2 days ago since I actually last played this, pretty much. So, anyways, let's hop on here, and then fling ourselves to here, and sure enough, I think it might actually contains, like, kind of think about it, oh, there's actually the ice cube down there, so we'll just, use that to our advantage. So, because I get the feeling if we hit back here, there's the final... I would say this is the last Patrick sock, isn't it? Yeah, we found every single socks. So, anyway, so now let's go and talk to Mrs. Puff, and then, well, just get ourselves our next golden spatula. So, I think relatively speaking, this will be the last time talking to her in this game, so...
SpongeBob, there you are. Thanks to you, all the campers have safely returned.
No problem, Mrs. Puff. Any self-respecting sponge would gladly help. And it was actually fun exploring the Kelp Forest.
You're not so bad when you aren't behind a wheel, SpongeBob. Thanks again.
Always glad to lend a hand, Mrs. Puff.
I found this golden spatula the other day. Why don't you take it? You've definitely earned it.
Wow, Mrs. Puff. I'll cherish it always.
Alright, so let's obtain that, and that pretty much leads us to 74 golden spatulas, and also got another trophy as well, so how's that for that? So anyways, let's hit over back onto the Patrick selections of missions right here, because as far as I'm aware, it feels like we're almost nearly at the end for, you know, trying to find the majority of those Patrick socks, basically, so, oh, and another thing about this as well, about the fact of the matter is, though, is that another one of those announcements they did bring from the likes of the forms of that particular presentation for that Nintendo Direct Mini Partner Showcase, that's what appears to be another Mega Man Legacy Collection compilation. But this time around, though, it's gonna be Battle Network Legacy Collection, so yeah, it seems pretty interesting when they did manage able to choose Mega Man Battle Network series as opposed to the forms of Mega Man Legends, because, well, I was expecting to see Mega Man Legends collection here somewhere, so that just in case you don't able to spend so many cash, we're able to actually get ourselves the forms of the original PS1 physical cartridge, or specifically the physical version of those games. But either way though, actually, hold on a second, because I think I actually forgot something right here, so hold on just a moment. Okay, sorry for this jump cut right there, because I somehow almost got interrupted, so in this case though, we'll just go ahead and head over now onto the next world, which like I said before, is the Flying Dutchman's Graveyard, so hopefully this one might not be so bad after all, so yeah, let's begin.
The graveyard of ships. Somewhere among this haunted mess, a fearsome specter waits.
And this is where we find the Flying Dutchman himself. So, anyways, not much socks to collect because there's only literally 3 of them. So, anyways, let's go ahead and take care of these little tikis here to grab some more shiny objects here. So, yeah.
Oh, yes. Who dares disturb the Flying Dutchman?
It's me, SpongeBob, sir.
I don't need any cookies.
But I'm not a shell scout.
Look, kid, I'm too disturbed to scare the bejesus out of you right now. Come back later.
What's the matter?
It's these darn robots. They've thrown me off my own ship, they have. Being thrown off your own ship is like having your pants pulled down in front of casual acquaintances. It's a sad, sad thing. Now those robots have got their own pirate ship, and they're blasting away at each other.
Is there anything I can do to make you feel better?
Well, now that you mention it, get up to my ship and use the cannons to single-handedly defeat the robot ship. Any questions?
Is that adorable hat available in a size 3?
No, but if you do this, a golden spatula be your booty. Now get going.
Okay, so we need to make our way to that particular golden spatula, and I think this is actually the final enemy we can ever encounter. And honestly, these are my absolute least favorite robots to encounter because, well, as you probably doubted by this point, is the fact that he now started able to create a bubble shield of himself. So we need to able to take him on within, well, let's just say a bubble missile we can able to actually just launch into him. So, however, you need to do it twice, by the way, so just in case you really don't want to able to do the hard way, because obviously the knockback won't help you. So, yeah, relatively speaking though, when you get the hang of it though, it might not be so bad. Oh wait, you need to able to hit him for about a few more times. Jeez. Anyway, so we got another trophy. This actually means that we actually destroy some even more robots. Or to be more specifically, we've defeated all types of those robots. So yeah, that's actually super dope and everything. So anyway, the next announcement they did bring, well, like I mentioned this before, we actually got ourselves another Mega Man Collection compilation, which this time is focused on Battle Network Legacy Collection games. And the games they got in here, which is all 10 of those games basically. So we got ourselves the forms of, you know, the original Mega Man Battle Network, Battle Network 2, Battle Network 3, Blue and White versions. And there's also Battle Network 4, Blue Moon and Red Sun versions. And also we have Battle Network 5, Team Colonel and Team Proto Man. And finally, we have Battle Network 6, which is Psy Beast Psygar and Psy Beast Fallen. I think that's what it says anyway. Despite I've never actually known about the forms of the Battle Network series as much as the next guy. But, on the other hand, oh, and there's also Return to Monkey Island, so I guess it's that. And also recently, about the fact the matter is though, we actually getting ourselves not 1, not 2, but 3 Persona games are actually coming to the Nintendo Switch. Like, I know for the fact that every Persona fans will be so excited about this, especially you can now finally able to play Persona 5 R, in this case like Persona 5 Royal, I think that's what it says anyway. That particular game is going to be due out at some point on October 21st of 2022. So that's going to be on Friday. So yeah, that should be exciting. And also we're getting ourselves Persona 4 Golden. And also Persona 3 Portable is also coming to the Switch. And yeah, that's actually pretty exciting. So even then though, that again, for those of you other Persona fans out there, they'll be very, very happy to see the Persona games are now finally coming to the Switch. So, because you know, you can finally able to play those games on the go. And the last two, on the other hand, though, which I was so excited for, and it's a good thing we did manage to conclude, the rest of the forms of the Pac-Man World Trilogy Let's Plays, as far as, you know, Pac-Man World 1, 2, and 3, for their respective years between 2019, 2020, and 2021. And you know exactly what I'm about to say. Yes, Pac-Man World is back. Well, usually as a remake of the original game. Yeah, I'm referring to as Pac-Man World Repack. So, yeah, that particular game exists now, which is very exciting for my part, because I was a huge fan of Pac-Man World games. Well, except the third one, because the third one seems to be as my least favorite games in the series. But for the first game and the second game, it's always been one of the most timeless classics I've ever played. And I was very excited to see Pac-Man World as a remake is finally now exist. And yeah, because we've seen the gameplay footage, it looks very recognizable for those who have ever played Pac-Man World 1 before on the PlayStation. And everything else looks a lot more nicer than the forms of how it does in the original. Although sure, that about the fact that there are some questionable choices here and there. Such as, for instance, with the redesign of Talkman, which I think I prefer the original one a bit more, just because it's a little bit more aggressive and scary. And that's just for my personal taste anyway, and also maybe biased when it comes to those specific stuff. And also about the fact that some people complain about the fact that there's a lack of Miss Pac-Man appearance, which apparently though, for what I've seen the articles of the game, well, to be more specifically, Repack version of Pac-Man World, that it's been replaced by Pac-Mum? Okay, that's a bit odd. Especially noticeable because in the original game, that you have to rescue, well, you're still able to actually rescue some of those familiar friends in Pac-Man World 1, like Pac Jr., Professor Pac, alongside with the forms of Popcar, and as well as the forms of, well, baby Pac-Man, or anything else to be more specific. And also there is the dog we need to rescue, and Miss Pac-Man in the original. But now it's been replaced as in Pac-Mum, which is a bit odd. But regardless of such though, it might not bother me too much, I must admit. But it might take some time to get used to. And also, for what I've noticed, in Pac-Man World Repack, it will able to actually fix a lot of issues that we found out from the likes of the original version of the game. So, yeah, that should be pretty awesome, actually. And just like in forms of how it does it on, I would say in Klonoa, you know, Fantasy Rebirth series, it's also going to be released in multi-platforms, such as PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, PC, and of course, none other than Nintendo Switch. So yeah, for the first time ever, for the sake of the forms of Pac-Man World 1, specifically the console version most likely, handhelds don't count, because it plays kind of differently, within a different perspective and all that stuff. So yeah, for the first time ever for the Xbox owners, they're now finally able to replay Pac-Man World 1 as a remake. And same applies to the Nintendo console as well, being on the Switch. So, and as far as I'm aware, the release date for that game is going to be on this particular August. So, and speaking of which though, is the fact that tomorrow, that speaking of Klonoa, basically Klonoa Fantasy Rebirth series is going to be releasing during tomorrow. So, whilst it already came out in Japan anyway, so as a result, I am very excited able to actually play those Klonoa games again. Specifically the original game and the second game as well, because I always enjoyed those two a lot. So, yeah, that should be pretty swell. And, yeah, apart from the fact the matter is though, is the fact that, well, relatively speaking, I might be thinking we might able to actually possibly do Pac-Man World Repack Let's Play at some point, maybe until next year, because as far as I'm aware, that game wasn't even out yet. So it feels like we get the feeling about the fact that within the forms of being 2020, 2021, and this year, that it's going to be filled to the brim with remasters or remakes, which it's kind of strange of how they're doing this route, so because of this though, or doing a specific route for that matter. But it doesn't bother me too much though with all these remasters or remakes, because, well, I just love to compare them both. So, anyway, and the last thing they did show us, especially notable, I was very hyped about, and that's of course new gameplay footage and information on Mario Plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope. So yeah, I can't even believe it's been about a year ago since we've last heard about the forms of Mario Plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope, ever since when it first announced back in last year in 2021. So yeah, about time actually. And they've shown us some more gameplay footage, especially noticeable they actually realized that we actually got ourselves some very interesting stuff here and there. Like, for example, we actually able to actually introduce into ourselves, let's just say like a leveling up system. So it's kind of like the same similar thing as in skill tree thing as the forms of how it does in the original game as far as I'm concerned. And on top of all that stuff though, oh wow, I did literally slide off from that particular thing itself right there, so whoops. Anyway, and they've shown us about the fact that, well, the art style, on the other hand, for that Mario Plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope, it just looks so good. And on top of all that stuff though, is the fact that, relatively speaking, that we're still able to have the ability to play as Mario, and also Rabbid Mario, Rabbid Luigi, Peach, Rabbid Peach, and as well as the forms of Rabbid Rosalina and stuff like that. But, on the other hand though, we're actually getting ourselves some very interesting newcomers. Well, we already know for the fact that on the actual first ever trailer, although I'll get to more details about that in a second, because we'll might as well get interrupted by that particular conversation with Squidward.
Ahoy there, Mr. Squidward! Swab the poop deck!
Yes, hilarious. Don't you have a platinum whisk to get?
That's golden spatula.
Whatever. There's one up there.
And that's all he has to say. Okay, relatively speaking, yeah, we already technically know about the fact that there's another new character that's actually introduced in the game, which appears to be, well, what we've noticed is the fact that they actually got him a name, or her name rather, and her name was, I would say, Edge. So, yeah, it's like the edgier version of that particular rabbit, and good thing is the fact that the actual, Edge Rabbit is actually a playable character. So yeah, that's actually pretty cool to able to see her in the actual gameplay. And finally, perhaps even most exciting thing out of them all though, is the fact that for the first time ever, well, technically if you guys ever played Super Paper Mario before, well, basically you know what I'm referring to. Yes, Bowser, the main villain of the entire Mario franchise, wow, he's actually a playable character this time around in Mario Plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope nonetheless. So I was like, oh my god, that is so cool. Especially noticeable, you can able to actually just play as not only Mario, Peach, and Luigi, and Bowser as well, within the Mario character cast. Which, it does remind me of something related to, not only Super Mario RPG, despite the fact that Luigi is not playable in that game, but relatively speaking, it kind of reminds me of Super Paper Mario when it comes to character roster and stuff, which that's actually pretty cool. And as far as I'm aware, also that it also reveals the gold edition of that particular game as well. So it's very similar to the forms of the original game. That I think you get like more weapons, and I think possibly we might able to get some DLC story expansion as well. But it's hard to tell at this rate because obviously that, relatively speaking, also during that time we got ourselves a release date for that game as well. So relatively speaking, it's gonna due out at some point on the 20th of October, a day before Persona 5 Royal for the Nintendo Switch will be releasing. So yeah, for the most part, the actual presentations is actually not too bad. Now the problem with this particular partner showcase presentation, it's not literally I guess the actual library itself, it's the existence of this. Why the heck that Nintendo decides to able to actually just to continue with that particular system with this whole Nintendo Direct thing, which is of course Partner Showcase. Like, I understand about the fact that most Nintendo fans can get so salty for this point, especially noticeable, they always try to predict on the actual, like, the general directs or anything else to be more specific. But why did Nintendo decide to able to continue with this Partner Showcase stuff? I mean, sure, it still is my least favorite in terms of the forms of presentations alike. Well, relatively speaking, despite the fact that, well, it's just... well, I just have no idea why they just managed to able to continue with this stuff. I mean, sure, it might not be so bad in certain scenarios, but it's just that it's just not my type. Especially noticeable because I'm so referring to as in general directs as opposed to partner showcases or Nintendo Direct minis and stuff like that. But still, it just feels kind of out of nowhere and also just trying to jump scare you whatever when you see that happening. And it's just, I just no idea why they managed to bring that back after the events of 2 years ago. That's just not fair. But hopefully by that time and during the later months to come, then I'm pretty sure they will be able to actually make things a little bit more normality, I suppose. But we'll just see. Oh yeah, something's worth mentioning is the fact that with the, remember I mentioned this before about the fact that Mega Man Battle Network Collection is going to be coming out on its modern consoles? Well, I think, relatively speaking, it's gonna due out at some point on next year in 2023. You know, just like it informs of how it does it on Mega Man X Legacy Collection back in 2018. But despite the fact that it was originally gonna be releasing at some point this year, marks the I would say the 35th anniversary of the Mega Man franchise. But that's perfectly fine, because either way though, I'm not exactly sure if I was gonna able to try those games out by my own time. Well, mind you, you will able to actually access them on the emulator, so at the very least that's that. So it's just the fact that I'll try to test those out on my own time, so I can able to actually get accustomed to the game itself. But I think, relatively speaking, also is the fact that the only game they do not include on this collection, though, which appears to be Mega Man Battle Network Network Transmission for the GameCube, because I can understand why, because most people find that game impossible to complete. But relatively speaking, though, it's just the fact that, well, it's just only the Game Boy Advance titles they got. So the only collection is left now is, of course, like I said before, like Legends series, which referring to as, you know, Legends 1, Legends 2, including the honorable mentions, which is, of course, the Misadventures of Tron. So, and then that will be about it when it comes to Mega Man compilation games on its modern consoles. So, yeah, it's actually pretty top-notch with all these selections so far. So, and also the actual, the Portal to Duology collections, they already came out recently, so something's worth mentioning for the sake of time. And I suppose the last thing I should probably say is the fact that, well, aside from that, I think that's pretty much as far as I can try and talk about, for the sake of the forms of the actual conversations at this point. Oh, and I do apologize for that particular, you know, the message keeps popping up, because as far as I'm aware, Mighty was actually asking me about something related for this matter, so, but no, you know, you probably get the idea of how, things is gonna turn out, so, yeah, that's pretty much as far as I can say about it. But, I digress. And, also the weather itself is actually getting a lot more hotter at this rate, so, because obviously we're still on summer, of course, so, in fact, let me know in the comments down below for the question of the day. What you guys think about the forms of that particular, I would say, I'm not gonna lie, a pretty damn good Partner Showcase presentation when it comes to Nintendo Direct Mini, which I will say, it's not perfect, but I will say it's a really, really damn good one. I will say this right now, because first off, they revealed something Mario related, which that's a good thing, and also they revealed the more gameplay footage of Sonic Frontiers, which I also do like, and of course, let's not forget ourselves, Pac-Man World Remake exists, which I was very, very surprised and also excited at the same time, because I was really looking forward to able to playing Pac-Man World 1 again, except with a new coat of paint, and hopefully they'll be able to fix a lot of issues that I found with the original release. Although, don't get me wrong, I still enjoyed the original Pac-Man World 1 on the PlayStation, but I've almost pretty much 100% everything in the game though, clearly because I think, relatively speaking, the only point I'm actually stuck onto is the final bonus stage where it comes to likely in the Mansion Manor world. So, because, geez, that particular bonus stage is actually a lot harder to complete, but hopefully I'll get around into it at some point, so, anyway. But yeah, that's just pretty much as far as I can talk about for this point, guys. I am so excited when it comes to the forms of those specific announcements alike. Well, apart from the fact that certain Bayonetta fans are being slightly disappointed that there's no sign of more info on Bayonetta 3, which I honestly have no idea why. They just referring to able to or refuse to show that. And let's not forget, there's still no sign of the forms of the new release date for Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp either. So I was like, what's going on with those two things? So, but hopefully by that time, like I said, probably during at some point in September, we might able to actually see something more to come when it comes to likely 2023 and onwards. So, anyways, with that being said though, I'm afraid to tell you for this point, we got the endings of this point right here. So join me next time for more Let's Play of SpongeBob SquarePants, Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated. That is the fact that we're pretty much gonna have to wrap things up everything in the Flying Dutchman's graveyard and, well, grab some more golden spatulas as well. So, we'll see you guys on Monday. Later, fellas.